Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of the BeDifferential Podcast. I'm your host, Ava Gregory, and this week we are joined by the President of IMSA, the International Motorsport Association, and HSR Historic Sports Car Racing, John Doonan. Welcome to this week's episode.
Thanks, Ava. It's great to see you and really appreciate you asking me to be part of the show.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm really eager to get into your background and your career a little bit here and hearing some of your insights. But before we really dive in, do you have maybe just high level for the audience, a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Well, as you said, I'm very fortunate now to lead what I believe are two best sports car racing platforms in the world. That's the IMSA platform as well as HSR. And our whole entire sport, all of motorsport, is at this incredible moment of continuing momentum where we're seeing audience growth and participation at all-time levels from auto manufacturers and corporate partners. And, the fan engagement is at an all-time high, whether it's at the events or through social media or through awesome shows like yours. So I'm super proud to have the opportunity to lead IMSA in this very special time. And HSR, as you said, the historic sports car racing is a bit of IMSA's blast from the past. It's all of the vintage historic cars that many of which wrote IMSA's history book. So really thrilled. But for me, I grew up around it. My grandfather raced circle track midgets back in the late 40s and 50s. And then fast forward maybe into the late 60s, my dad started sports car racing on an amateur basis. So I was at the June sprints at Road America with SECA at 6 weeks old. And I think I've been to that track every year for the last 55. And the Indy 500 and my first IMSA race was also at Road America in 1979. So you could say I was baptized into the sport and been living a boyhood dream ever since.
That's something I love about this industry so much is I find that you're either in it from birth or you enter it way later and then just can't leave it. I think
Yeah.
that's amazing. So John,
Yeah.
you didn't ever dip your toes in the racing or competition side yourself?
I did. Grew up around the sport from, doing timing and scoring, doing work at the grid, eventually being a corner marshal, putting the equipment out on the corners early morning when I was a little boy. So I did a lot of learning of event operations, but then being around it and watching my dad and all of his friends race on an amateur basis, that's all I wanted to do. So eventually, in the early 90s, mid 90s, I got to go through my first official driver school. I ran in a improved touring Volkswagen Golf for a while. I drove Formula Mazdas a little bit. I've run the 25 Hours of Thunderhill a couple times. I've done some vintage racing. I have some vintage race cars. Have my grandfather's original race car. Have my dad's original race car. So as time goes on, I hope to do more of that. But in the moment, and when I was at Mazda for 19 years, which was kind of my first boyhood dream before IMSA, we did a lot with Thunderhill and so many series and grassroots racing. So Spec Miatas and MX5 Cup cars. I've had my turn at the wheel a few times.
I love that. And I share the sentiment deeply as well as starting in the industry very ground level, that corner marshal role. And it does. I mean, I feel like as a driver, I'm not a driver, not yet. But I think that, that really helps you to have a better understanding and honestly an upper hand when it comes to the competition side. So I appreciate that about your background. You just mentioned your experience with Mazda. Let's talk about that a little bit. How did you get into that role? Obviously, you've been inundated in the industry, but what did that professional jump look like?
Yeah, it was pretty funny. My dad was racing some Volkswagens and Porsches, and then later on, he had one of his racing buddies that owned a Mazda dealership up in Racine, Wisconsin. A gentleman named Ray Novotny, rest his soul. But I remember going into that dealership, and I know the passion you have for cars, Ava. And I'm 9-year-old boy. I walk into this Mazda dealership, and there on the floor sits, and this is the first year. Of course, I date myself that the RX-7s came to the
Amazing.
United States. So
Yeah.
here sits a white first gen RX-7 with plaid seats And I, as a 9-year-old boy, I saw heaven that day, in
Yeah.
my mind, from a car standpoint, and
Hmm.
fell in love with the brand. And that was at a time where just a few months before that, Mazda had brought the first RX-7s to the 24 Hours of Daytona as part of the launch plan, and they won the race. And so followed IMSA and Mazda throughout the 70s, 80s, and really fell in love with that brand. Met the right people at the right time, candidly. Formula Mazda became a thing. And guys like Robert Davis, Weldon Muncie, Brian Sim, met those guys and expressed my dream. It was a boyhood dream to work for Mazda. My mom to this day says that's all I talked about when I was a kid. And thanks to those guys, they gave me a chance. And I was there for 19 years. Started in a regional office in Chicago in advertising, but the motorsports side was the dream. And I got to lead the motorsports efforts with my teammates, Steve Sanders and Jim Jordan, for all those years. And we did some awesome stuff, from the Mazda Road to Indy to the Mazda Road to 24 and Spec Miata, MX5 Cup, the World Challenge, Tri-Point and Tyndall, Speed Source. We won the Rolex 24 twice, and then into prototypes. That was my real dream, was to get us back into prototype racing, and we had some great success and won Sebring eventually after I left. Petit Le Mans a couple times, Watkins Glen 6 Hour, Road America, my home track, and all those things. And once again, in life, you get a few times to realize dreams, and that was one of them, by all means. And now I'm living another one.
That's amazing. And what a full circle, like fulfilling moment to have just that reflection of 9-year-old you. Tell us a
Yeah, I
little bit,
appreciate it.
John, your role with Mazda, I'm sure it evolved throughout that tenure you had with them. What did some of the responsibilities look like that you shared, especially maybe pivoting from the advertising to motorsports? What kind of things did you have to develop and were responsible for?
Yeah, the advertising piece was in the regional office in Chicago, and it was working with the dealers and the tie. And it's such a passionate brand, Mazda. And so that was the easy part. It was easy to tell the story because I was one of them. I was a passionate enthusiast. Early on, it was about corporate partnerships and being able to raise the funds for us to get back into the top category, which we eventually did. First in the American Le Mans Series, and then in IMSA, when Grand Am and the American Le Mans Series merged. At one point in those days, I was doing the corporate partnership, I was doing the PR, I was doing the team development, I was finding drivers, I was doing contracts. So that honestly, if I look back, that is a full on education, because we didn't, we had an awesome group that was led by Steve Sanders on the grassroots racing side, selling parts to racers. But when we started developing a serious effort on the professional side, it was a small staff. Jim Jordan was doing all the marketing, and I was sort of the team organizational and team development guy. So it really was a good education, Ava. It was an opportunity to do it all, and then finally we grew and we were able to add some staff. But those are such key, and it. You're one of the all stars in the industry with that. Relationship building, corporate partnerships that are real and long term, event organization. It's important skills that can candidly take you just about anywhere.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I think you just made a comment that really does take a moment for pause and reflection. I think when I started in the industry almost 10 years ago now, I was on a very small team, right? And it was something where we all wore many hats. And even in the past decade, I've seen this massive shift of the industry as a whole. And now you don't have to have one person doing all these things. Now there are full teams that are responsible for what one person was somehow managing. And maybe they weren't thriving yet. So I think that speaks to what you shared at the beginning of this, of we're really in a pivotal point in motorsports and what that growth is going to look like. So I appreciate the sentiment you just shared, and I'm really eager to talk about, kind of the future of the motorsport industry as a whole and IMSA as well. So let's take that. You have this history with Mazda. You've moved to IMSA. Let's talk about that transition a little bit and kind of what your role looks like now, as well as absorbing HSR within it, because there's a lot you're overseeing now.
Yeah, there's no boring days, that's for
No.
sure. But first of all, it's a huge credit to Jim France and Ed Bennett, who, tapped me on the shoulder in March of 2019 and asked me to come to Daytona for a meeting of which I didn't know what it was about. And they asked me to succeed Scott Atherton and lead IMSA. And, first of all, it's one of those pinch me moments when you get that phone
Right.
call. Been a competitor in the championships and that type of thing, but to see the whole industry from this perspective now, and being given this opportunity is something it's hard to describe. At its core, and this goes back to those grassroots learnings, things like event organization, timing and scoring, working the grid, race control, all that stuff I did as a little kid. That really taught me. So it's, Midwestern Council, Sports Car Club of America. I learned what we're doing today at a very young age. And what we're doing today is simply a higher level of that and a professional event level of that. And so I keep telling folks it's very at its core. We're just trying to run safe and successful motorsports events. IMSA. What I tried to do was bring what I had experienced at Mazda as a manufacturer to
Mm-hmm.
the series and the manufacturer perspective. Series promotion, like the MX5 Cup and things that we had done. I tried to bring that perspective. Tried to bring series management and driver development perspective. So my hope was I had a bunch of tools in my toolbox from those years at Mazda, 19 of them, and tried to bring them over to IMSA and try to make a difference. Fortunately inherited and we've since grown the best staff of motorsports professionals I could ever dream of. Very passionate people that have dedicated their lives and their lifestyle to our sport. And you know this because you're in it. It's a lifestyle choice. Travel, events, one right after the other, late nights, early mornings. I mean, it's no secret that it's not easy. But I've been so fortunate to work with these awesome people. And I think the last piece it's done is it's given me a new perspective, because when I showed up to races and you, again, this showing up to an event as a participant, it gives you a whole new perspective when you know what it takes to organize it. And, HSR has been a great addition. We added that to the portfolio now just over 3 years ago. I love that property as well, because it's our history, and also we have to use it to remind our fans on how we got to today.
Oh my goodness, you just said so many things that are sparking all these. I deeply resonate with everything you just said, especially, the difference of being a fan and working in this industry. What do you think is something that is a behind the scenes factor that fans don't see? And more often than not, we hope they don't see, right? But what are things that you put into the behind the scenes that other people might not consider?
Well, I think event experience, so um, if you break it down in the simplest of way, you and I as fans, we may go to a website, buy a ticket, or just decide that the weather is beautiful some Saturday or Sunday morning, and we're going to drive to the racetrack and we're going to buy a ticket when we arrive. And once we get there, what's it like?
Mm-hmm.
What is the experience like? And I think from the IMSA perspective, we've tried to create an experience like none other. Clearly, it's a lot easier these days to share content. So our social and digital teams are sharing these digestible, short format video pieces that are captivating people and either further educating them or actually getting them to come to an event. But how do we get them there? We obviously use those tools, but once they're there, we have a very open paddock, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we open up the paddock so that families and their kids, fans can be right up close to the cars, the drivers, the team, the world's best are there. Manufacturer displays on the midway, a very active midway, such that the automakers can talk about what they're doing on the racetrack, but show current road car product. The grid walk, there's no grid walk like IMSA's, right? Any fan with a GA ticket has the ability to go out on the racetrack before the race starts, to meet the teams, the drivers, and see the cars up close. Many times the race teams will pick up a young, a little boy or a little girl and put him in the driver's seat. And that's the kind of stuff I grew up either getting the chance to do or seeing happen. And that's the kind of thing. So for me, having our fans know that it's really important to us that we give them an experience like none other. We want them to come back, and we certainly want them to bring friends and family when they do come back. And I'm proud of where we are there with fan experience. We're going to keep pushing to make sure that we give every fan the opportunity and the experience of a lifetime.
I definitely think IMSA is succeeding and excelling at that. So I'm eager to continue talking about, what's to come in the future. But before we do, I do want to linger on the HSR component for a second. With such a historic series, how do you balance, the maintaining reverence of what was the history of IMSA and so many other series to keeping it alive and bringing it something new, making it interesting for new fans coming in?
Well, it starts with the cars for
Mm-hmm.
me. Making sure, of course, that safety features are up to date. That's number one. But these HSR weekends, whether it's the Classic 6 hour at the Glen, which just concluded, Classic 10 hour, Classic 12 hour at Sebring, Classic 24, or the Midi presented by Haggerty. These events are staples in the calendar. And so when we get the cars there, we want to use those events as a stage to demonstrate and showcase the sport's history. We want to make sure the cars are as authentic as they ran. Again, safety features have improved. Some things have changed with ECUs and other componentry to allow the cars to still run. But for me, celebrating the cars and the drivers, and it always warms my heart, and you can relate to this when someone has acquired one of these pieces of artwork that has a very strong pedigree from when it raced. It won major races, it won championships, that type of thing. And it always warms my heart when the person who's acquired it wants to tell that story, and they want to tell about the big events that the car ran, the famous drivers that drove the car, and they're doing it for fun.
Yeah.
They're out there doing it as a hobby. And for me, it always warms my heart when those new owners are continuing the legacy of that race car. And our sport's got such an awesome history, and we want to keep using HSR to tell it.
Well, I'm really excited about that too. Any listener on this podcast knows that I am a classic car enthusiast. So I am so biased, but I love HSR and really look forward to it growing. So speaking of growth and kind of now let's pivot toward the future. IMSA has changed a lot and grown a lot under your leadership. I mean, there's been introduction of the new GTP classes that have joined, a more hybrid era. Let's talk about what you see for the future of IMSA and maybe those components and how we're balancing with our typical, what we've known for combustion sports car racing.
Yeah, please, you just gave me chills, to be honest, Ava, because as a little boy, I got to see IMSA and on TV, but then in 1979 experience it. And I always felt like, it was the auto industry's, rock concert, if you will. It's the best way I can describe it. And I've always, I used to go to the Chicago Auto Show because I grew up in Chicago. I grew up going to the Chicago Auto Show with my dad. And all I wanted to do was run to the next display and see what race cars were in the display. Now, I was biased because my dad and grandfather were racers. But for me, it was always this connection between what was happening on the street, okay, what may have been developed for the street on the racetrack, or what the racetrack was doing to be the ultimate laboratory of testing, the biggest reliability test of all time, whether it was the cars, the engines, the tires, all those things. So, my IMSA teammates and I today are doing exactly that same thing, wanting IMSA to be this awesome entertainment property that is the heartbeat of the auto industry and the technology industry now. And so we want to be relevant for the automakers. And you mentioned hybrid. When we sat around a table, and I had the opportunity to be on the manufacturer side for a while, and then on the sanctioning body side, when we sat around a table and the manufacturers talked about, where is the industry heading, hybrid was the sweet spot. Hybrid was the place that the automakers felt in an endurance racing format, you couldn't do full EV. We didn't want to become dinosaurs with just a petrol powered, piston pounding cars. We had to find a middle ground. And thank the Lord that everybody found hybrid, and the way that our team executed the regulations,
Hmm.
which now have become global regulations, with a hybrid system that now 9 manufacturers have decided is the way.
Yeah.
They voted with their participation and their commitment, and that is so gratifying, that we're doing that as a way for them to tell that story. Is there a place for EV in the future? Maybe, probably in a sprint race format. Is there opportunity to do more than what we're doing already with fuels? 100%. We're at 80% sustainable fuel now. I would love to see us to get to 100%, and I know the automakers are pushing us for that.
Yeah.
Tire technology has come so far. Michelin's kicking serious butt on building tires with more and more renewable raw materials, and sustainable raw materials. We are exactly that. We're a entertainment platform for the auto and the technology industry, and I couldn't be more proud to be able to be leading the organization.
Well, I want to dive into this a little deeper because you mentioned, now the global regulation. Obviously, IMSA is an international organization and you're in a couple different countries within North America. What do you see for the future? Is there a potential globalization of IMSA? Is there broader reach? I mean, this is it's okay. I'm sure you can't answer this, but
No,
if is there an idea or a goal down the line if we would love to expand and see what this looks like more broadly?
well, I just had the chance to get back from Le Mans, and we have a awesome strategic alliance with the ACO, which runs Le Mans and runs the World Endurance Championship out of Le Mans, France. And our part of our alliance agreement allows us to execute races in North America, which is the United States and Canada. Clearly, at Le Mans, there's 3 full IMSA teams that got the chance to go compete because they won a championship with us, and many more drivers and teams like Wayne Taylor Racing and the Whelan Cadillac group, they were there as well. So at the moment, the events we have in the U.S. and Canada, those are the IMSA events, and we continue to brainstorm with the ACO on ways that we might be able to do more. But right now, we're going to focus on that. We're going to focus on continuing to bring the latest automotive technology, to make sure that we're allowing or I guess being part of the automakers telling the story. Because if we keep doing that, the car counts you see, the fan engagement you see now, can only continue to flourish and grow.
I love that so much, and I'm eager to continue seeing the advancements that are coming out of IMSA. Let's pivot a little bit. So we've talked about kind of the future of the industry, the technology. I think right now a very hot topic is how are we getting more of the younger generation involved? And IMSA has a great open paddock policy, as you alluded to earlier. What are some ways that you're seeing either the development of youth coming in, of younger drivers coming in, or bringing younger, newer fans into the space?
Well, you hit another chord for me. That's pretty good. You made me have chills twice so far. Um, I'm a huge advocate of the next generation. I honestly, the effort that I extend today, every day when I get up, is trying to give back to the sport that has given me so much. And the sport welcomed me as this little track rat, running around talking to racers and race officials, and I want that coming to me now. And so, number one, from a driver development standpoint, I was fortunate on the Mazda side. We did it on the open wheel side and the sports car side. Now at IMSA, we have the 3D driver development scholarship. Super proud of that. We're now celebrating our, let's see, one, two, three, four, fourth year that we've executed this with awesome drivers, finding their stepping stone. But it goes way beyond the drivers. And this year we kicked off IMSA STEM. Obviously, STEM education and clearly our sport is full of science and technology and engineering and math. And we're visiting six of the six markets that we race in. We're hosting top, 25 to 30 high school students in the area at the racetrack. They're going to see Michelin, learning about tires and tire technology. They're going to see Bosch to learn about hybrid. They're going to see one of our race teams to see the car and the team in the flesh. They're going to see our safety team and learning about Nomex and helmets and things like that. So we're really trying to introduce that next generation to our sport. At Daytona, at Sebring, at Long Beach, we've hosted college engineering students, college marketing students, because as you know, you don't need to be an engineer to have a career in this sport.
Right.
And you're living proof of that. I'm living proof. I'm not an engineer either.
Yeah.
But bringing these college students out who are deciding what career they're going to choose, whether it's mechanical engineering, marketing, PR, and I can tell you we had a group at Sebring from Florida Polytechnic University. And about 3 weeks after it, the president of the university reached out to me and said, "You're not going to believe this, but 3 students, after visiting the Mobile One 12 Hours of Sebring and getting the tour, changed their major to
Wow.
automotive engineering." And so for me, that is obviously a huge feather in our cap. You mentioned the open grids. We want to give people internships and get them in the sport and make sure that the pipeline is strong for the future.
This is such an important topic. And, I think that what you guys are doing is creating so much opportunity. And, this podcast really does exist to showcase no matter what your skill set or interests are, there's a place for you in motorsport. And I think you guys are just continuing to highlight and optimize that as well. At the beginning of this, you alluded to the power of networking and you meeting some of the right people at the right time. What do you think the impact of mentorship is for people that are coming up into this space? I mean, did you have a mentor that you looked up to throughout your career? What are some things you're doing now, maybe from the other side of the seat in the mentor position?
Yeah, really well said, and a credit to you for doing what you're doing with the podcast to try to put the hook in and attract some new folks. It does start with building a network, and anytime I get outreach from a student who's interested in being in the sport, I tell them, first of all, you got to come to the racetrack, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And when they do, my assignment to them is I'm going to be willing to make introductions for you, but you need to leave this event with a list of names and contact information. Whether that individual you met is your next employer or not, having that network is crucial. And once again, I'm blowing you up here, but you're a living example of that. You have built a network of individuals that, again, when it comes to another idea, oh, I should call so and so, and that's how it happens. And so it definitely is about building those initial, sort of circle of influence that you have in the industry, and then, candidly, when you are stuck with a challenge, and I can call up and say, Ava, look, I'm facing this challenge. I'd love to bounce some ideas off of you and get your impression. That to me is what I do. That to this day, I call up guys my dad raced with. Hey, I'm facing a challenge here. I need a listening ear. I need a fresh set of eyes on this thing because I'm too close to it, and I'm struggling with what to do next. And I think that's how you navigate what is as a very challenging lifestyle, a challenging industry. But a lot of it for me is folks I grew up watching in the sport, people I idolized in the sport, and candidly, some of them now, the fact that I'm even in meetings with them makes me pinch myself.
I completely understand. I feel like I'm still so young in this industry to have some relationships that I do. So I completely understand. Well, so John, let's talk a little bit, from a fan perspective. I don't know about you. I feel after working in the industry, I'm a horrible fan. I get so I'm like, I need to do something. And it's just, I would rather be a part of it. But I've got to ask, you have such a tenure in this career. You have multiple experiences across multiple perspectives. What is a race that, or an event of any type that you were at that just you had either like a pinch me moment or an unforgettable experience?
Well, first of all, if I stop being a fan, and I've told my family this, they need to take me out back and have a chat with me about going to do something else because I truly wake up every day, eager to get back to work because I'm still a huge fan of the sport. Most recently, and if they haven't checked it out already on Amazon Prime, American Thunder is the story of a project that I am so fortunate to work on with so many other amazing men and women, and that was taking NASCAR to Le Mans in the Garage 56 project. That is a very emotional for me because we made history nearly
Mhm.
50 years after Mr. France's father, Bill France Sr., did that. I think the other is navigating through the pandemic and putting a full championship in. That was a big one at the end of 21. Then it goes down to individual races for me. Having the chance to win the Rolex 24 twice as a program manager, winning Petit Le Mans. And then, ironically, in the year 2019, I originally talked to Mr. France and Ed Bennett in March, and they, asked me to take this opportunity at IMSA. Well, I wanted to finish the Mazda season, and that was my last. And throughout that whole year, there was only a handful of people that knew I was leaving.
Mm.
The three of us, Mr. France, Ed, and I, and my family, and eventually my boss at Mazda. And in that season, we won 3 races in a row. We had a lot of struggles for 7 years leading up to that, and then we won 3 races in a row, two in 7 days, Watkins Glen and Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, and then the real capper was Road America. I had always wanted to win a big one there, and just God had a plan, and we brought it home for the third in a row, and I got a win at my home track before I left to come to IMSA. So.
Wow, what a closing. Wow, that is amazing. And 2019 is such a cool year. That's, biased from Road Atlanta. That's when the Michelin Tower was constructed and revealed. And it's such a cool year to have experienced everything just pre-pandemic because it
Yeah.
definitely did change afterwards. So wow, that's amazing for you to have that closing. You just mentioned within that, maybe you had had some struggles before you got those back-to-back wins. What are some things and lessons that you've taken away that were either challenges you've had to overcome or just lessons learned that made the successes that much sweeter in the end?
Well, I think it starts with the people that I was able to do it with. So many of them are my dearest friends in the sport. Guys like Stephen Charlesley and Larry Holt at Multimatic. But when you're building these racing programs, especially at the professional level, and even for someone who's doing track days or running an amateur racing program in SECA or NASA, it's not easy. Okay. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of resources, both, blood, sweat, tears, and money. But at the professional level, these programs are very complicated and take tons of people, and things just weren't where we needed to be from a engine standpoint, and chassis standpoint. And you know, there's a lot of tears when things aren't going well. Car breaks. You're on national television. It keeps happening over and over. You keep going to the executive team and saying, I promise it's going to be better this next time," and putting in more testing and breaking things. And I actually have underneath my desk a little Tupperware container that I've saved over the years, and it's just full of broken parts.
Oh,
It's
wow.
full of valve, stems that are broken. It's full of pieces of pistons and cylinder heads, and you know, uh, here's a shock absorber that failed, and at one point, and it's those things like when the success comes, all of those challenges um, are washed away. However, without those challenges, you don't get to that success moment. And so, as people go through the industry, people that you engage and you suck in because of your show, um, they need to know that there's going to be challenges. It's going to be the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, as my friend Rob Warkaki says. But when you realize it, you learn from it, you make it better, and then you have the success. It's pretty sweet.
What a good visualization. And you're so right. I feel like a lot of people that are outside of this industry see the glamorization, and that is so not what is happening for those of us that are in it. So I love that visualization of the broken parts. You said something, and just kind of as we're starting to close out here during that anecdote there, it was the people. And I think for a lot of folks that are coming into this industry or that are curious about entering it, there is the question of what is leadership looking for when hiring? What are characteristics that they should be developing to improve their career placement, and what can that look like?
Yeah, certainly doing the research and deeply studying as much as you can every aspect of the industry. I would say learning the entire industry, sort of how the entire business works, not just one singular discipline. And you touched on it a few minutes ago about there's engineers that are doing marketing. There's marketing people that are deep into race strategy and technology. There's mechanics that are doing hospitality. Like it's such a cross-functional industry that yes, you can come in with a specialty, and maybe you stay in that specialty for the rest of your career. But having a wide range of experiences, learning the whole business, understanding the other parts of the business, because decisions you make actually impact that other side of the business is critically important. But building the relationships and having a trusted circle around you is so mission critical. And my father, I'm going to get emotional here, but my father told me when I was a little boy that if something were to happen to him, the people from the sport were going to be the first people on the doorstep to support my mom and my sister and I. And lo and behold, when my father passed away, hard to believe it's 32 years ago, the very next morning, there were five guys on the doorstep that wanted to help any way they could. And for me, that's a bit of a test, or a litmus test, or the relationships, the deep relationships that I want to have in this industry are people like that. That they're going to be people on the doorstep when something goes wrong, and that's what I've experienced. That's what I want to be for so many others in this sport, and I know I've got a group of folks that would do that for me.
The community in this industry is truly unmatched. I know I'm biased, but it really is. There's, I think, a negative connotation with the idea when you work together, having the family dynamic is just not great. But really, the industry as a whole, I mean, as it is so incestuous that you end up really deepening and nurturing these bonds with a professional as well as friendship, personal level. And it's something that I completely agree. There's folks that I've worked with that I know would show up the next day if something happened. And That's really meaningful. I
Yeah.
want to ask too, and I mean, you just kind of shared a little bit of this, but outside of having specific characteristics, what is just a piece of advice you might have for someone that's curious about getting more involved in motorsport?
Well, we have an awesome partnership with SECA, and that's one, obviously the biggest grassroots organization. And you mentioned it earlier. You got to get out to a local event, whether it's Track Night in America or a regional or one of their Hoosier Super Tours or a majors event. Walk around, meet people, look at the corners and see the people in the white suits, because there's no other way to get that close to the action than being a corner marshal, and start to get yourself involved that way. There's nothing like it, and you watch our sport on the television, and once again, this. There's nothing like being there firsthand and
Yeah,
seeing it, and making sure that you're deep in it as a participant. There's ways to be in it for a career. There's ways to be in it for your weekend getaway. There's people that want to do their weekly work and then on Fridays go to a local event or to a professional event and work as a corner marshal all weekend and head back home and do their day job.
absolutely. Well, John, I appreciate your time and the insights you've shared so much. Thank you for just taking a little bit of your career and sharing it with us. Where can the followers or the listeners follow along on your journey and what IMSA is getting up to next?
Yeah, certainly IMSA.com for all the latest news and ways to connect with us socially. Our YouTube channel has grown immensely, so subscribe to the official IMSA channel on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, you name it, TikTok. We're out there, and the audience is growing. All of our races are either on NBC Network or Peacock. A few of them on the USA channel, but IMSA.com has all of that info, and certainly HSR Race, so 2Rs.com, leads you to the HSR schedule, and hopefully you can come see the traditions of the past with HSR and the very promise of the future, which is IMSA.
That is perfect. We'll have all that information in the description below so you can find it with ease. John, thank you again for sharing some time with us, and listeners, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thanks for having me.